rudimentary survival. Check out my, I'm gonna go over kind of some of the stuff I got for the birds, and I want to show this, that it doesn't have to be fancy like these big full-time homestead channels make it out to be. All right, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be fancy. Here is my rainwater collection that I use to feed or to water my birds. Boom. Roof, metal roof, made from reclaimed tin, or poor man's tin. It's actually not really tin. Little known fact, it's actually more or less steel. Tin roof is, tin's actually kind of expensive. But anyway, boom, gravity, 5-gallon buckets. That's what I do. That's how I do it. Okay. Now, I'm gonna flip around here, and I'm gonna show you some more stuff, and how you listen to the rooster. Listen to the rooster. All right, I'm gonna flip this around, and I'll show you some more what you can do. All right. Okay. All right. So I need to get some paint on this. This coop I built just all by my lonesome, using as much reclaimed pallet board as I could, and then I got some plywood, well, particle board, back when particle board was actually affordable. But there are other things you can make. You can make the walls out of. You can go around and find reclaimed, a lot of things reclaimed. You can build it solid out of pallets, to be honest with you. You just are gonna have to, it's just a little more work, okay? But like I said, there was an old building down someone's property in my group, and they were gonna push it all out of the way with their bulldozer, and so I took what I had. This is an old interior door that I had, and so and then there's my fancy locking mechanism here. Here's the 2 black ones are hens, and the other 3 are roosters that are speckled. But anyway, there's their roost right there as a ladder. I got a heat lamp. They don't need a heat lamp anymore, but it gives them a little bit more light, because I only put a window here, and this isn't exactly the best window. When they get bigger, I've had other birds in this coop before. When they get bigger, they like to roost. They like to roost on that. Of course, I've got some wire, old scrap wire here, hanging. Their feeder, the suspending feeder. Okay, this feeder, you can look up all kinds of crazy contraptions people have for feeders, and there's fancy ones store-bought and fancy ones people make out of scrap. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. I like these feeders because they are suspended, and it keeps them from kicking dirt and pooping in it, and because they like to roost on the feeders, and they'll get up there and just chill out and poop in their feed. So I like the suspended ones. The water's real simple, real easy, real inexpensive. There are some bigger ones that I have for the big birds, and those are a little more expensive, but it's not like you have to buy them all the time either. Oh, would you hush there, Willard? All right, so I got that deal. All right, now I'll show you some of the feed. There's one of their feeders. That's a fairly inexpensive feeder, but not the least expensive, and I need to pick that up. Oh, I was in a hurry when I dumped feed the last time. I just haven't picked it up yet. But anyway, here is, and you could do this with 5-gallon buckets. I've got a metal trash can here, and that is a little storage tote. I keep some of their feed and feed stuff in here. And boom, guess what? I don't need to buy no stupid feed scoop. I got a coffee can. You know why? Because why would I waste my money on a feed scoop when a coffee can does the same thing? Right? So I'm going to show you off. Here's grit. I give them grit every now and again. All it is just crushed rock. Boom, storage tote. I've got some more stuff in there for them. Oyster shells is a good calcium. I like to give them a little bit of scratch grains, occasionally some meat bird crumbles, because they're higher in protein than the layer crumbles or the layer pellets. And to help up their protein, I give them some of these on occasion. And guess what? I give it to them in not a bought and scoop. Boom. Reused container. And guess what? I give them scraps. I give them scraps every day. I've got scraps, which I usually have scraps. If I go out to eat with the family, with in-laws or any of that, I take all of the food that nobody's going to take home with them, and I get it and put it all in one to-go box. And these girls get it, and they eat like kings for that day. So I do that. And you know what I take the scraps out in? Same thing that I gather the eggs in. The fanciest thing on the world. Boom. Coffee cup, coffee can. Because, you know, I like my coffee. And you pay for the can when you pay for the feed. So, why not? Like, you don't have to spend a lot of money in this. Really, you don't. You can have this set up, and you could have this looking a lot nicer than I do, but I'm got it back in the woods. I don't really care that much. You know, I do need to get some paint on this just because of the weather, and I've got some other roofing material I'm going to get my hands on that'll do actually a little bit better job than this old tin, because it's kind of not doing the greatest job, but it has worked. Biggest problem with it right now is it leaks and gets down under there and rolls off down on the sides. So I do need to fix that. I either need to get some caulking, some tar or something to seal it up, which I will do. It's part of one of my projects. All right, now I'm gonna flip you back around so I can talk to you. All right, folks, you can do this. You can. Like, you don't need to buy all the fancy junk that you see on your fancy homesteading channels. A lot of these homesteading channels, they had a lot of money starting out in this, or they've gotten sponsored because they're huge channels and companies want to send them stuff so that, you know what, they'll sell you stuff. I'm not looking to sell you anything. A lot of these homesteading channels, and they're good, and I watch a lot of homesteading channels, but a lot of them, once they get to a certain size, you know, people will send them stuff and say, hey, you know, would you use this on your show if you like it, you know? And they, you know, I'm not saying that the stuff that they are pushing is bad stuff, but you don't need it. Like, if you can't, like, don't look at homesteading and having livestock, and don't look at this as something that's cost prohibitive. Just because you don't have the nicest, you know, the nicest run for your chickens, or the nicest fence, or the nicest the nicest, you know, feeders. Like, the chickens don't care where their food comes from, as long as they have food and water, right? Chickens, like, they don't care. And honestly, neither do any of the other animals. Like, no other animal cares where its food comes from, as long as it has food. Like, they don't care if you serve it in a $50 Yeti dog bowl or a cheap ramen noodle thing or a cut in half coffee can. They don't care. Like, they really don't. Like, my dog, it's just like with pets. Like, my dog does not care if I feed her in a friggin' half-cut coffee can or a real fancy, $50 dog bowl that Yeti makes for some reason, because people are stupid enough to buy it. You don't need all that. Like, there are expenses. Like, that chicken coop, I had some expense in it. But no, not really a whole lot. I've got pre-COVID, I've got less than $100 in building that chicken coop, I'd say. Let's see, handful of 2x4s, which at the time were a couple bucks a piece. And a couple of sheets of 1/4-inch particle board and 1/2 inch thick sheet of plywood. And that's the floor. The floor is the plywood. And everything else I either scavenged from other properties that I had access to, which you can have access to. People put ads out on Facebook. I don't have Facebook anymore, but people put ads out on Facebook Marketplace all the time. Like, I need this building gone, but, you'll have to tear it down and you have to take it all with you. And there is usable stuff in that. Like, people do that on a fairly regular basis around here. If you're looking for scrap, most businesses will give you pallets. You can build stuff out of pallet boards. It's not really, that difficult, and it does a good enough job for chicken coop or animal housing. Like, you really don't have to spend all that kind of money on this stuff. But you've got to get out there and you've got to do it. And you can get creative, man. Like, if you've got a piece of scrap, like, you've got to exercise your mind and, like, how could I use this for my purposes here? And it's doable. Like, it's absolutely doable. So just think about it, folks. You ought to get into this. And like I said, you don't need all that much to get started. They sell chickens at Tractor Supply and Royal King and all the other farm supply stores in the summer, and like Royal King sells them, I think, year round. But they sell chickens every day, and ducks and quail and turkeys and all the other all the other birds. They sell them. And they're, I'm not telling you to go in there without doing some research on the animals, but you don't have to. It's not a cost prohibitive thing for most people. Like, most people can absolutely afford it. They just can't necessarily afford to have the nice looking, pretty, pre-made little chicken coops that they sell that are like what? Like, I think the pre-made ones I've seen are like $500. I've got neighbors who lived on this road, and they moved into the property fairly recently. And when, actually they moved in right at the beginning of all this mess. And they got a menagerie of birds. A lot of birds. All different variety, turkeys and chickens and ducks and all that. You know where they coop them up? They let them free range out in the yard. You know where they coop them up at? They have one of those big chain link fence dog kennels, and they had some dog houses and stuff in there for them to get in and roost up in. And they put in the when the wintertime hit, they put blue tarps and heat lamps in there for them. They put blue tarps up all around it and then put heat lamps in there, and that's what they're using right now. And is that the greatest system? No, but it's working. It's working. They got more birds on their property than I do on mine. Although they free range theirs, and mine I keep in a fenced-in run. And maybe once I get my breeding operation up and running, and I've got more coming out every so often, I've got more birds than I know what to do with, then I might free range some, because when you do free range, you do run the risk of losing a few. So that is just part of it. But anyway, folks, I'm gonna get out of here. I just want y'all to understand, be encouraged that you can do this. It doesn't require a great deal of expense. It really doesn't. It doesn't require a Shangri-La for your chickens. You can do it. I'm signing out, and God bless.